Seconds matter right now. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now. There is a shift happening in the unseen realm that most people cannot perceive with their natural eyes, yet it is directly affecting their bank accounts, their opportunities, and their financial future. Archangel Michael stands as a warrior and defender, and this message carries urgency because timing in the spirit is not measured the way humans measure time. A single moment of obedience can unlock years of delay. A single moment of hesitation can prolong cycles that were meant to end. And many listening to this right now are standing at a financial crossroads without even realizing it. You have prayed. You have worked. You have tried to stay faithful. Yet the wealth you believed was coming seems suspended, as if something invisible is holding it back. The frustration is real. The questions are real. Why is it taking so long? What am I missing? But what if the delay is not random? What if it is not simply economic conditions, bad luck, or coincidence? What if there is a divine reason your wealth is being delayed? And what if the key to unlocking it is something so simple, so immediate, that skipping it would keep you financially stuck? Archangel Michael reveals that wealth delay is often tied to spiritual timing and spiritual alignment. Heaven does not operate on panic, but it does operate on precision. When the title says seconds matter right now, it is not exaggeration. There are moments when divine instruction is released, and those who respond quickly step into acceleration. Those who delay their response remain in cycles they were meant to exit. The difference between breakthrough and breakdown can be a single act of alignment. There are forces that resist your expansion, not because you are unworthy, but because your increase carries influence. Financial elevation is not just about comfort. It is about impact. It is about territory. It is about assignment. And when wealth is attached to purpose, it becomes contested. That is why delay often intensifies right before release. The pressure you feel may not be proof of failure. It may be proof that something significant is close. But here is the shocking truth. Sometimes the delay is not caused by opposition alone. Sometimes it is caused by omission. Something small that would dismiss. Something that seemed insignificant. A step you thought did not matter. A nod you ignored. A correction you postponed. Heaven is precise. And when precision is required, seconds matter. There are divine windows that open quietly. They do not always come with thunder. They come as impression, instruction, conviction, idea to goals to action. When ignored, the window does not always remain open. It does not mean your destiny is cancelled. It means timing shifts. And timing shifts can feel like delay. Right now, many are in a season where wealth is near, but alignment is incomplete. The prayer was heard. The pavilion was prepared. The path was mapped. But heaven waits for agreement. Agreement in action. Agreement in faith. Agreement in obedience. And the longer agreement is postponed, the longer manifestation is postponed. You may feel like you are doing everything right. You budget. You plan. You work hard. Yet something feels blocked. Archangel Michael reveals that this is not a season to move casually. It is a season to move consciously. To examine what has been spoken over you. To revisit what you were instructed to do. To respond swiftly when clarity comes. Because hesitation in a critical moment can extend struggle unnecessarily. There is also refining taking place. Delay exposes motives. It exposes fears. It exposes attachments. Wealth amplifies what is already within a person. If there is insecurity, it grows louder. If there is generosity, it grows stronger. Sometimes heaven pauses release to strengthen the vessel. not to punish but to prepare, not to restrict but to protect. But here is the urgency. Protection has a window. Preparation has a timeline. And there comes a moment when the instruction is no longer about refining. It is about responding. Seconds matter right now because the choice you make in this season determines whether you cross into increase or continue circling the same mountain financially. This is not about fear. It is about awareness. It is about understanding that divine timing intersects with human response. When revelation comes and is acted upon, acceleration follows. When revelation comes and is ignored, stagnation lingers. And many are closer to breakthrough than they realize, yet dangerously close to missing it because they underestimate the power of immediate obedience. If you feel a stirring as you hear this, that is not coincidence. That is confirmation. Something in you recognizes that this is not just another message. It is a wake-up call. Wealth is not being withheld to harm you. It is being positioned to align with purpose. But alignment requires action, and action requires urgency. Seconds matter right now because destiny moments are rarely dramatic at first. They feel small. They feel simple. They feel easy to postpone. But they carry weight in the spirit realm. And when you understand that what you do next can either unlock provision or extend delay, you begin to treat instruction differently. This is the urgent heavenly alert. Do not treat this season casually. Examine. Listen. Respond. Because the reason your wealth has been delayed is about to be revealed. And once revealed, you will not be able to say you did not know. The next step will seem small, but it will determine whether you remain financially strained or step into the flow that has been waiting for your agreement all along. There is a hidden war over your wealth, and most people never realize they are standing in the middle of it. They think their struggle is purely economic. They blame the market. They blame their background. They blame their mistakes. But what if the delay you are experiencing is not just natural? It is strategic. What if there is resistance? Because your financial breakthrough carries more than comfort. It carries calling. And when wealth is tied to purpose, it becomes contested territory. Archangel Michael is not a passive observer. He is a defender, a warrior assigned to protect divine order and guard destinies that carry kingdom impact. When your finances are connected to influence, generosity, leadership, or legacy, they are not insignificant. They become authority. Not because you are special in ego, but because you are significant in assignment. And the greater the assignment, the greater the resistance that tries to slow it down. Many of you have felt this. Every time you get close to stability, something unexpected happens. An expense appears. An opportunity collapses. A delay surfaces. It feels repetitive. It feels calculated. And in many cases, it is. Not as punishment, but as pressure. Pressure designed to exhaust your faith. Pressure designed to make you lower your expectations. Pressure designed to convince you that increase is not for you. The hidden war over your wealth often begins in your thoughts before it shows up in your bank account. Doubt whispers, it will never change. Fear says, you should not aim higher. Comparison says, others are meant for abundance, not you. These are not harmless thoughts. They are seeds. And when planted long enough, they create internal agreement with limitation. Once agreement forms internally, delay becomes easier externally. Archangel Michael reveals that one of the enemy's greatest strategies is distraction. If you are distracted, you are delayed. If you are emotionally drained, you are less decisive. If you are overwhelmed, you postpone bold steps. A war is subtle. It is rarely dramatic. It is persistent. And persistence can wear down even strong believers if they are not aware of what is happening. Another sign your wealth has been spiritually stalled is chronic hesitation. You sense ideas but second-guess them. You feel led to take action but delay it. You receive insight but minimize it. Over time, hesitation compounds. Missed moments accumulate. And what could have accelerated begins to stagnate. The war over your wealth thrives in hesitation because hesitation slows obedience. There is also the strategy of isolation. When you struggle financially, shame tries to silence you. You withdraw. You stop sharing your vision. You shrink your goals. Isolation weakens clarity. It magnifies fear. And in isolation, you begin to normalize lack as identity rather than season. But lack is not your identity. Delay is not your destiny. Resistance is not proof that you are rejected. It is proof that something valuable is at stake. Here is what many fail to see. The closer you get to breakthrough, the more subtle the resistance becomes. It shifts from obvious obstacles to internal battles. It moves from external blocks to internal doubt. And if you misinterpret the pressure as failure, you may retreat at the very moment you were meant to advance. This is why awareness is critical. When you recognize that there is a hidden war over your wealth, you stop taking every setback personally. You stop internalizing delay as incompetence. Instead, you ask a better question. What is this resistance trying to prevent? Often, it is trying to prevent your expansion, your generosity, your influence, your freedom. Now listen carefully. You are not called to fight this war in fear. You are called to stand in authority. Authority comes from alignment. It comes from clarity. It comes from decisive obedience. When you become intentional, when you refuse to partner with doubt, when you confront hesitation instead of nurturing it, something shifts. Resistance loses leverage when agreement is withdrawn. If this message is speaking directly to your situation, that is not coincidence. It means awareness is rising, and awareness is the first step to victory. Do not keep this revelation to yourself. There are others silently battling the same financial delays, assuming they are alone. Share this message with someone who needs clarity. Like this video as a declaration that you refuse to remain unaware. Comment below that you are ready to break agreement with delay. And subscribe to this channel so you do not miss the instructions that could reposition your financial future. Engagement is not just interaction. It is alignment with truth that sets you free. The hidden war over your wealth does not end with frustration. It ends with strategy. It ends with decisive movement. It ends when you stop reacting emotionally and start responding spiritually. You are not powerless in this. You are positioned. But positioning requires awareness. And awareness requires humility to admit that something deeper may be happening beneath the surface. You are not crazy for sensing resistance. You are not dramatic for feeling pressure. You are perceptive. And perception is a gift. The question now is not whether there is a war over your wealth. The question is whether you will respond strategically, or remain passive while seconds continue to pass. Because seconds matter right now. And what you choose to believe, confront, and act on in this season will determine whether the war over your wealth weakens, or whether it continues to delay what was meant to flow into your hands. There is one thing many are skipping, and it is so simple that most people overlook it. It is not another job application. It is not another budgeting app. It is not even another prayer repeated in frustration. It is obedience to the last clear instruction you received. That is the missing key. That is the overlooked step. And that is why wealth remains delayed for so many who believe they are doing everything right. Archangel Michael reveals that heaven does not release new instructions when old ones remain ignored. The delay you are experiencing may not be because God is silent. It may be because the last directive was postponed. Think back. What was the last thing you felt strongly led to do? A conversation you avoided. A step of generosity you rationalized away. A risk you delayed because it felt uncomfortable. A habit you were told to break but kept excusing. The mind forgets quickly, but the spirit remembers clearly. Obedience is not dramatic most of the time. It rarely feels grand. It often feels inconvenient. That is why it is easy to skip. But in the spirit realm, obedience is currency. It signals trust. It signals alignment. It signals readiness. And when alignment is present, provision flows more freely. When alignment is absent, delay becomes a form of mercy, holding back what you are not yet positioned to steward. Many want wealth, but few examine whether their current patterns can sustain it. If you cannot manage what you have now, increase would amplify disorder. If you cannot give at your current level, abundance would not suddenly make you generous. If you cannot move when instructed in small matters, you will hesitate in larger ones. Heaven tests stewardship before releasing expansion. This is not punishment. It is preparation. There was a man who prayed for financial breakthrough for years. He fasted. He declared. He believed. Yet nothing changed. One day, he was reminded of a simple instruction he had ignored: make peace with someone he had wronged in business. Pride kept him from acting. He justified his silence. But unresolved dishonor blocked open doors. When he humbled himself and made it right, opportunities that had been stalled began to move within weeks. The breakthrough did not begin with money. It began with obedience. This is the principle many skip. They want supernatural results while neglecting natural obedience. They seek dramatic signs while ignoring quiet convictions. Archangel Michael warns that delayed obedience compounds delay. Every postponed instruction extends the timeline. Not because heaven is harsh, but because heaven is precise. Ask yourself honestly, what have you been postponing? Is there a budget you were instructed to create but avoided? A partnership you were nudged to end but feared losing? A skill you were meant to develop but procrastinated on? A step of faith that seemed small but felt significant? The blockage may not be mysterious. It may be waiting on your response. Here is also the obedience of mindset. Some are called to stop speaking lack over their lives. Words matter. Agreements matter. If you constantly declare that you are broke, unlucky, or stuck, you reinforce limitation internally. Breaking agreement with those patterns is obedience. Choosing disciplined thinking is obedient. Acting with courage when fear suggests retreat is obedience. And here is the deeper revelation. Obedience is time-sensitive. When the title says seconds matter right now, it is because delayed action weakens momentum. When clarity comes, move. When conviction rises, respond. When opportunity aligns with instruction, step forward. The longer you analyze what you already know to do, the heavier hesitation becomes. If this feels personal, it is meant to. Here is something specific surfacing in your memory right now. Do not dismiss it. A gentle reminder is not random. It is direction. And what comes next will expose why this small step carries greater weight than you imagined. Hold on, because what is about to be revealed will make you see your delay differently. Before we move forward, I need to speak to those who feel this stirring deeply. This message is not just information, it is ignition. And when you respond, you are not just helping yourself, you are helping others hear what they desperately need. If this revelation is unlocking something in you, then act on that stirring. When you release a super thanks, become a channel member, or sow through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code flashing on your screen, you are sowing into fertile ground. Scripture declares that when you sow generously, you reap generously. And this is not distant theory. It is God speaking life over your seed right now. I feel led to say this plainly. I am stepping into obedience by supporting this mission. As you give, you are lighting a lamp in places where darkness tried to dominate. You are pouring oil that keeps this prophetic fire burning across nations. Do not delay your obedience in this moment. Activate your seed. Let your giving become a prophetic act that declares alignment. And as you sow, may increase pursue you in ways you cannot calculate. Type "I will obey" quickly in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 911 is now activated. The step you are about to take may look small in the natural, but it carries weight in the spirit. And what you choose to do in the next moments will determine whether delay continues or whether acceleration begins. There is a dangerous assumption that many make when wealth does not arrive on schedule. They assume it has been denied. They interpret delay as rejection. They interpret waiting as abandonment. But Archangel Michael reveals something that shifts the entire perspective. The delay is often a test, not a denial. And misunderstanding this season can cause you to sabotage the very breakthrough you are being prepared to handle. A denial closes a door permanently. A test measures readiness. Those are not the same thing. When heaven denies something, it is removed from your path. But when heaven tests you, the opportunity remains, waiting for maturity to meet it. The problem is that tests rarely feel noble while you are inside them. They feel frustrating. They feel unfair. They feel exhausting. Yet the pressure you feel may be proof that you are being strengthened, not excluded. Wealth is not only a blessing, it is responsibility. It amplifies character. It magnifies habits. It exposes weaknesses. If impatience rules you now, abundance will intensify it. If discipline is absent now, increase will strain you. If pride hides in small victories, it will grow louder with larger ones. So heaven refines before it releases, not to withhold joy, but to protect destiny. Archangel Michael stands as a guardian not just against external threats, but against premature promotion. There are battles you do not see because they are being fought to preserve your future. There are opportunities that have been delayed because your foundation needed reinforcement. If wealth arrived too early, it might distract you from purpose. It might attach you to the wrong alliances. It might anchor you to comfort instead of calling. Consider this. Some of the greatest financial collapses happen not because people lacked opportunity, but because they lacked preparation. They stepped into expansion without inner stability. They received more than their mindset could steward, and what was meant to elevate them eventually overwhelmed them. The delay you resent may be the shield you will one day thank God for. Testing seasons reveal patterns. Do you remain generous when resources are tight? Do you remain faithful when results are slow? Do you maintain integrity when no one is watching? These questions are not random. They are measurements. Heaven watches how you handle the small before entrusting you with the large. If you compromise in scarcity, abundance will not correct that weakness. It will amplify it. The delay also tests your trust. It asks whether your faith is conditional. Do you believe only when results are visible? Or do you remain anchored when evidence is limited? True alignment is proven in waiting. It is easy to praise when increase flows. It is harder to remain steady when nothing seems to move. Yet stability in silence builds strength for acceleration. There is another layer to this test: identity. If you see yourself as perpetually behind, perpetually unlucky, perpetually struggling, then delay will confirm that belief. But if you understand yourself as being prepared, refined, and strengthened, then delay becomes purposeful. The narrative you choose shapes how you endure the process. Archangel Michael warns against adopting a victim identity in a season of refinement. Victims resent the test. Stewards embrace it. Do not confuse refinement with failure. Failure says you are incapable. Refinement says you are being upgraded. Failure ends the path. Refinement sharpens it. The fire that feels uncomfortable may be removing impurities you could not see. Impatience, insecurity, poor boundaries, inconsistent habits. These are subtle cracks that wealth would widen. The test closes those cracks before expansion begins. And here is the powerful truth: tests have expiration dates. They are not eternal. When the lesson is learned, the door opens. When alignment is strengthened, momentum shifts. But resisting the lesson prolongs the process. Complaining about the fire does not cool it. Ignoring the weakness does not eliminate it. Facing it does. Ask yourself, what is this season teaching me? Is it teaching discipline, patience, courage, better stewardship, cleaner motives, clearer priorities? The answer may reveal why wealth has not yet arrived. Not because you are unworthy, but because you are being shaped into someone who can sustain it. Archangel Michael reveals that some of you are closer to release than you realize. The test is nearly complete, but the final stretch often feels the hardest. Fatigue increases. Doubt whispers louder. Comparison becomes tempting. This is the moment many misinterpret. They assume the intensified pressure means defeat is near. In reality, it often means promotion is close. The key is endurance with awareness. Do not numb yourself. Do not disengage emotionally. Lean in. Refine your habits. Tighten your discipline. Strengthen your faith. Close small leaks in your stewardship. Every adjustment you make now becomes part of the foundation that will hold future increase. You are not being denied. You are being prepared. And Putterian is evidence of Mediterranean. Heaven does not prepare what it does not plan to use. If your wealth were cancelled, there would be no refinement, only redirection. But the refining itself is proof that something is still assigned to you. The delay is not a verdict against your future. It is a training ground for it. And when the release comes, it will not feel accidental. It will feel earned through obedience, matured through testing, and stabilized through growth. The question is not whether the test exists. It does. The question is whether you will pass it with humility and strength or prolong it through resistance. Because the moment preparation is complete, delay transforms into acceleration. And what once felt like restriction becomes evidence of divine protection all along. There are doors you did not realize were open, and those doors may be influencing your finances more than market conditions ever could. Archangel Michael reveals that not every delay is about timing or testing. Some delays persist because access have been granted to patterns, mindsets, and spiritual permissions that quietly resist your increase. You have been praying for open doors of opportunity, but have you examined the doors within your own life that should have been closed? Open doors are not always dramatic. They are often subtle agreements. Unforgiveness is a door. Fear is a door. Chronic doubt is a door. Dishonor is a door. These are not abstract concepts. They are permission. When left unresolved, they create legal ground for limitation to remain. You may not consciously choose lack, but unresolved internal conditions can unconsciously sustain it. Take unforgiveness, for example. When resentment lingers, it drains emotional energy and distorts perception. It keeps you tethered to past offenses instead of present opportunities. Financial growth requires clarity and focus. Bitterness clouds both. You may believe unforgiveness only affects relationships, but it also affects creativity, confidence, and courage. When those are weakened, opportunities slip by unnoticed or unpursued. Fear is another open door that many normalize. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of visibility, fear of responsibility. These fears solely influence decisions. They cause you to play smaller than you are called to. They convince you to delay bold moves. They justify staying in familiar limitation rather than stepping into unfamiliar expansion. And over time, fear disguised as wisdom becomes a silent gatekeeper that blocks growth. Doubt operates similarly. It questions every idea before it has a chance to mature. It overanalyzes until momentum dies. It seeks certainty where faith is required. Doubt does not always shout. It whispers caution in moments that demand courage. When repeated long enough, doubt becomes agreement with stagnation, and stagnation becomes misinterpreted as destiny. Dishonor is a door many overlook. This includes dishonoring commitments, dishonoring guidance, dishonoring opportunities that once appeared small. When you treat small assignments casually, you signal unreadiness for larger ones. If you disregard current responsibilities, why would greater ones be entrusted to you? Honor builds trust. Trust invites increase. Dishonor erodes both. There are also generational patterns that function like inherited doors left ajar. If you grew up around scarcity language, financial instability, or constant anxiety about money, those patterns may have shaped your subconscious expectations. You may unintentionally replicate cycles you once resented, not because you desire them, but because they feel familiar. Familiarity can be mistaken for fate. Archangel Michael reveals that awareness breaks inherited repetition. What you identify, you can confront. What you confront, you can close. Another overlooked door is inconsistency. Starting strong and quitting quietly. Making plans without follow-through. Setting goals without discipline. Inconsistency fractures credibility with yourself. And when self-trust weakens, decisive action becomes rare. Wealth responds to consistency. It grows where patterns are stable. If your effort fluctuates with emotion, results will mirror that instability. There is also the door of misplaced priorities. When consumption outweighs investment, when comfort outweighs calling, when immediate gratification overrides long-term vision, these decisions feel harmless in isolation, but accumulated over time, they form a pattern that delays progress. You cannot pray for harvest while neglecting seeds. You cannot expect multiplication while ignoring stewardship. Closing doors requires honesty. It requires humility to admit that not every obstacle is external. Some are internal permissions that need revoking. Archangel Michael does not expose these areas to condemn you, but to empower you. What you close today cannot continue influencing tomorrow. What you confront loses authority over you. Start by asking direct questions. Where have I tolerated fear? Where have I justified procrastination? Where have I allowed resentment to linger? Where have I been inconsistent? These reflections are not meant to shame you. They are meant to restore control. You cannot close what you refuse to acknowledge. Once identified, act decisively. Grieve intentionally. Even if emotions lag behind, choose release. Replace fear-driven hesitation with calculated courage. Strengthen discipline through simple, repeatable actions. Honor your commitments, especially the small ones. Speak differently about your financial future. Shift from scarcity language to stewardship language. These adjustments may feel minor, but they seal openings that once invited delay. Understand this clearly. Wealth is not only about earning more. It is about becoming someone who can sustain more. Sustaining requires structural integrity. Integrity requires closed doors where weakness once entered. You cannot build higher while leaving foundational cracks unattended. Archangel Michael stands ready to assist those willing to confront their open doors. But assistance does not replace responsibility. Authority is activated through alignment. When you close what has been draining you, clarity increases. Confidence strengthens. Opportunities feel less intimidating. Momentum becomes easier to maintain. You may have thought your delay was mysterious. You may have blamed circumstances beyond your control. But now you see another possibility, that your next breakthrough begins with shutting what should never have remained open. The power to close these doors does not belong to your past. It belongs to your present decision. Seconds still matter. Not because you must panic, but because awareness demands response. Leaving a door open after recognizing it exists is no longer ignorance, it is choice. And choice shapes outcome. Close the doors. Seal the cracks. Reclaim authority over your patterns. Because once access points of limitation are removed, the resistance that once felt overwhelming will lose its footing. And when the internal structure is strengthened, external increase will have somewhere secure to land. There is a law operating in your life right now, whether you recognize it or not. It is not controlled by markets, governments, or economic forecasts. It is older than currency and deeper than contracts. Archangel Michael reveals it as the law of divine exchange. And many who cry out for wealth delay are unknowingly resisting this law while praying for its results. Divine exchange is simple in principle but profound in impact. What you release determines what you receive. What you sow influences what you reap. What you open your hands to give creates space for what heaven can place back into them. Yet fear teaches people to close their hands tightly. Scarcity whispers that holding back ensures survival. But in the kingdom economy, closed hands block increase. This does not only apply to money. It applies to time, energy, honor, service, generosity, and trust. If you withhold encouragement, you limit relational favor. If you withhold effort, you limit growth. If you withhold generosity, you restrict multiplication. Exchange requires participation. Harvest requires seed. Increase requires release. Many are asking for financial overflow while living in emotional and spiritual reservation. They calculate every act of kindness. They measure every moment of service. They hesitate before giving because they fear depletion. But divine exchange does not operate on fear. It operates on faith. It recognizes that the source is greater than the supply currently visible. Archangel Michael reveals that delay often persists where there is imbalance. When you only focus on receiving but neglect sowing, the flow becomes stagnant. The river that only receives without releasing becomes a swamp. Stagnation sets in. Movement stops. But when water flows freely in and out, it remains fresh and life-giving. Your financial life follows similar principles. This is not manipulation. It is alignment. You cannot expect expansion while living in contraction. You cannot desire multiplication while refusing participation. Exchange activates partnership with heaven. It declares, I trust the giver more than I trust what I currently hold. That trust creates spiritual momentum. There are those who say, I will give when I have more. But divine exchange often responds to the opposite posture. Give from what you have now. The widow who gave her last portion did not give from abundance. She gave from faith. And faith positioned her for supernatural supply. When you give only from surplus, you operate in comfort. When you give from trust, you operate in covenant. However, divine exchange is not reckless. It is not impulsive generosity without wisdom. It is intentional alignment with instruction. Sometimes the exchange required is not financial. It is obedience. Releasing a toxic partnership. Letting go of an outdated strategy. Investing time into skill development. Shifting priorities from consumption to creation. Each of these is an exchange. You release one thing to receive another. Archangel Michael warns that clinging to what is familiar can delay what is promised. If you refuse to release outdated habits, you cannot step into upgraded opportunities. If you hold tightly to comfort, you resist growth. Exchange requires courage because it involves temporary vulnerability. You let go before you fully see what will replace it. There is also the exchange of mindset. Some must release a poverty identity to receive a stewardship identity. If you view yourself as perpetually behind, you will subconsciously repel responsibility. But when you see yourself as entrusted and capable, you begin to act differently. Behavior shifts. Decisions mature. Opportunities are approached with readiness instead of fear. Divine exchange also involves honor. When you honor guidance, doors open. When you honor wisdom, mistakes decrease. When you honor your commitments, trust builds. Trust leads to partnerships. Partnerships lead to expansion. Every act of honor is a seed. Every seed carries potential beyond its immediate appearance. Delay can signal that an exchange is pending. You are waiting for increase, but heaven is waiting for release. You are asking for overflow, but something in your hand must first be sown. What are you holding that should be planted? Is it an idea you keep postponing? A gift you have minimized? A resource you have stored in fear? Seeds kept in storage never multiply. The law of divine exchange requires participation now, not later. Seconds matter because hesitation interrupts flow. When clarity comes about what to release, act. When conviction nudges you toward generosity, respond. When wisdom directs you to invest rather than consume, obey. Exchange delayed is harvest delayed. Understand this clearly. Divine exchange does not impoverish you. It positions you. It rearranges your trust from temporary security to eternal supply. It transforms anxiety into expectation. It shifts your focus from what you might lose to what you are about to gain. Archangel Michael stands ready to defend what flows through aligned hands. But defense does not override participation. Heaven multiplies what is surrendered, not what is hoarded. The measure you use in release often mirrors the measure you experience in return. This is not about pressure. It is about partnership. You are invited into a system that transcends economic cycles. A system where generosity unlocks favor. Where obedience activates opportunity. Where trust accelerates timing. If your wealth feels delayed, examine your exchange. Not with guilt, but with honesty. Where have you hesitated to release? Where have you clung to what was meant to be planted? Where have you waited for certainty instead of moving in faith? When you correct the exchange, you correct the flow. And when flow is restored, delay loses its grip. Because in the law of divine exchange, what you release in alignment does not disappear, it multiplies. Here is a silent agreement that many people make without ever signing a contract. It is not written on paper, yet it governs decisions, expectations, and outcomes. Archangel Michael reveals that one of the deepest reasons wealth remains delayed is because of an internal agreement with lack. You may be fighting poverty externally while unknowingly partnering with it internally. And until that agreement is broken, increase will feel unnatural, uncomfortable, even unsafe. An agreement with lack does not begin with money. It begins with belief. It forms where repeated disappointment shapes identity. When bills pile up long enough, you stop seeing yourself as temporarily strained and start seeing yourself as permanently behind. When opportunities fail repeatedly, you stop believing in future success. When comparison wounds you often enough, you shrink your expectations to avoid further pain. These shifts feel protective, but they quietly redefine what you think you deserve. Lack then becomes familiar, and familiarity feels stable, even when it is restrictive. You know how to survive in lack. You know how to adjust. You know how to lower expectations. But abundance feels foreign. Responsibility feels heavy. Visibility feels risky. So without realizing it, you resist the very breakthrough you pray for because it threatens the identity you have grown used to. Archangel Michael reveals that spiritual battles often center around identity more than income. If you identify as someone who never gets ahead, you will subconsciously make decisions that confirm that story. If you see yourself as unlucky, you will overlook opportunities that require boldness. If you view wealth as something reserved for others, you will hesitate when doors open for you. Breaking agreement with lack begins with awareness. Notice your language. Do you frequently say, "I can't afford that," even when it is not entirely true? Do you describe yourself as broke, struggling, or behind as a fixed identity rather than a passing season? Words are not harmless. They reinforce belief, and belief shapes behavior. There is also the agreement formed through fear of judgment. Some fear that if they succeed, others will criticize them. If they rise financially, they may lose relationships. If they prosper, they may be accused of changing. So they unconsciously stay smaller to remain accepted. This too is agreement with limitation. It prioritizes comfort over calling. Another hidden agreement forms through guilt. You may feel unworthy of increase because of past mistakes. You may believe you mismanaged previous opportunities, so you do not deserve new ones. But guilt that lingers beyond repentance becomes a chain. It keeps you anchored to yesterday instead of prepared for tomorrow. Archangel Michael exposes this chain not to shame you, but to free you. Breaking agreement with lack requires confrontation. You must speak against it intentionally. You must declare that struggle is not your identity. You must reject the narrative that says you are destined to remain financially restricted. This is not arrogance. It is alignment. You are not claiming entitlement. You are reclaiming potential. Imagine holding a contract in your hand labeled perpetual limitation. You never signed it consciously, but your repeated words and beliefs have validated it. Now imagine tearing it in half. That is what breaking agreement looks like. It is a decisive internal shift. It is choosing to see yourself as a steward rather than a struggler. It is recognizing that your current condition does not define your permanent capacity. Archangel Michael symbolizes the sword of truth cutting through deception. Deception says, "This is just how your life will always be." Truth says, "Seasons change when identity aligns." Deception says, "You are not capable of handling more." Truth says, "You are being prepared to manage greater responsibility." When truth replaces deception, action follows naturally. You will notice something powerful when agreement shifts. Opportunities that once intimidated you will feel accessible. Decisions that once felt risky will feel strategic. Generosity will feel empowering rather than frightening. Discipline will feel purposeful rather than restrictive. Nothing external may change immediately, but internally everything begins to reposition. Breaking agreement with lack also requires gratitude. Not gratitude that denies struggle, but gratitude that acknowledges provision even in transition. Gratitude shifts focus from scarcity to stewardship. When you appreciate what you currently manage, you prove readiness for more. Discontent without gratitude fuels resentment. Gratitude with vision fuels growth. There is a moment in every transformation where you must decide which voice to believe. The voice of past failure or the voice of future promise. The voice of fear or the voice of courage. The voice of limitation or the voice of expansion. Seconds matter because hesitation in this decision prolongs delay. Archangel Michael reveals that many are one internal decision away from external movement. The agreement has already expired, but you continue honoring it out of habit. Today is the moment to revoke it. Not tomorrow. Not when evidence appears. Now. Say within yourself, lack is not my covenant. Limitation is not my identity. Delay is not my destiny. When you declare this and align your actions accordingly, the spiritual atmosphere shifts. Resistance weakens when agreement dissolves. You are not required to remain in cycles that no longer serve your growth. You are not assigned to permanent scarcity. You are called to stewardship, influence, and responsible increase. But breaking agreement with lack is the doorway to that reality. The sword has already been lifted. The truth has already been revealed. The question is whether you will stand in alignment or continue partnering with a narrative that was never meant to define you. This is the activation moment. Not next month. Not when circumstances feel safer. Not when your bank account looks different. Right now. Archangel Michael reveals that awareness without action keeps you in the same cycle. Revelation demands response. And if seconds matter, then what you do immediately after hearing truth determines whether delay continues or dissolves. You have examined obedience. You have identified open doors. You have confronted agreements with lack. Now comes the decisive shift. Activation is not emotional excitement. It is intentional alignment. It is when knowledge turns into movement. It is when conviction becomes commitment. The first step is clarity. Write down the specific instruction you have been avoiding. Do not generalize it. Name it. Is it creating a disciplined financial plan? Is it ending a draining partnership? Is it launching the idea you have postponed? Is it repaying a debt honorably? Is it investing in skill development? Identify it clearly. Vague intentions produce vague results. Specific decisions produce measurable change. The second step is immediate action, even if small. If you need to create a budget, begin it today. If you need to make a phone call, schedule it now. If you need to restructure your time, adjust one habit before the day ends. Action breaks hesitation, and hesitation hath been one of the strongest anchors of your delay. Movement generates momentum. Momentum silences doubt. The third step is spiritual declaration. Not empty words, but aligned speech. Speak differently about your financial future. Declare stewardship over struggle. Declare discipline over disorder. Declare courage over fear. Words shape expectation. Expectation shapes behavior. Behavior shapes outcome. Archangel Michael reveals that many remain stagnant because their language contradicts their prayers. The fourth step is alignment in giving and receiving. Ask yourself, where must I release in order to receive? This may involve generosity. It may involve time. It may involve letting go of pride. Activation is of genuine motion. You cannot expect doors to open while clinging tightly to what is meant to be planted. The fifth step is consistency. One bold moment will not sustain transformation if followed by passivity. Activation must be reinforced daily. Review your commitments. Track your progress. Refuse to retreat when results are not instant. Remember, delay is broken through persistence aligned with purpose. Here is also a prayer posture that strengthens activation. Not begging, but partnering. Say, I align my actions with divine instruction. I refuse delay rooted in hesitation. I step forward with clarity and courage. This is not mystical language. It is intentional alignment between belief and behavior. But hear this carefully. Activation will feel uncomfortable at first. You are disrupting patterns that have existed for years. Your resistance may intensify briefly. Doubt may attempt one final argument. Fatigue may whisper that change is too much effort. This is the critical moment. Do not interpret resistance as a sign to stop. Interpret it as confirmation that movement has begun. Archangel Michael reveals that the window for decisive action is open now. Windows do not remain open indefinitely. When awareness rises, grace for action accompanies it. If you postpone this activation, the urgency you feel may fade. Clarity may dull. And what feels obvious today may feel distant tomorrow. That is why seconds matter. You may be wondering, will this really change my financial situation? Understand this. Activation shifts you before it shifts your bank account. And when you shift internally, when discipline strengthens, when obedience increases, when courage replaces fear, external change follows more naturally. Wealth flows toward structure. Opportunity aligns with preparation. Hold on, because what comes next will solidify everything you have heard and reveal why this moment is more strategic than you imagined. You will be glad you leaned into this activation instead of dismissing it. Before we move forward, I must speak to those who feel the fire of this activation rising within them. This is more than personal breakthrough. It is collective impact. When you respond through super thanks, join as a member, or so through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are not funding a platform. You are fueling a movement of awakening. Scripture declares that as you sow, you will reap in due season, and this is your due season to plant boldly. I declare this over you. As you release, rivers of provision will meet you. Say it with conviction in your heart, I am activating my harvest through my seed. Do not hesitate in this sacred moment. Let your giving become a prophetic strike against delay. As you move, heaven moves. Activate your support now and watch alignment multiply in your life. Type activation now in the comments if you are stepping forward. Blessing code 818 is now activated. This is not a rehearsal. This is the moment. Decide. Move. Align. Because when activation replaces hesitation, delay loses its authority. And what once felt distant begins moving toward you with unmistakable momentum. There is a window open right now, but not everyone will step through it. That is the sobering truth Archangel Michael reveals. Some will hear this message, feel stirred for a moment, and then return to distraction. Others will recognize themselves in every word, yet delay action one more time. And slowly, almost quietly, the urgency will fade. A window will not slam shut dramatically. It will simply narrow. And those who hesitated will wonder why nothing changed. Why do some miss the window? It is rarely because they lack intelligence. It is rarely because they lack desire. It is because of distraction. Distraction is subtle. It convinces you that there is always more time. It persuades you to scroll instead of strategize. It pulls your attention toward urgency that feels loud but is not truly important. And while your focus scatters, momentum dissolves. Seconds matter because focus determines direction. When you consistently divide your attention, you dilute your progress. You may feel busy, but busyness is not the same as movement. Archangel Michael warns that this season requires intentional concentration. If you allow constant noise to dominate your mind, you will miss the clarity that once felt sharp and undeniable. Another reason some will miss this window is pride. Pride resists correction. Pride resents instruction. Pride prefers comfort over change. When confronted with truth, pride defends old patterns instead of surrendering them. It whispers, "I already know this." It argues, "That does not apply to me." And in doing so, it protects the very habits that created delay in the first place. There is also the danger of spiritual procrastination. This is different from laziness. Spiritual procrastination is when you agree in theory but postpone in practice. You say, "I will start tomorrow." You promise, "I will adjust next week." You convince yourself that timing is flexible. But delay disguised as planning is still delay. The opportunity to act with conviction exists now. When you postpone commitment repeatedly, commitment weakens. Fear of change is another silent barrier. Even when current circumstances are uncomfortable, they are predictable. Growth introduces uncertainty. It demands courage. It requires stepping into unfamiliar territory. Some will choose familiar limitation over unfamiliar expansion because at least they understand its boundaries. But familiarity should never be mistaken for safety. Archangel Michael reveals that the tragedy is not that the window closes, it is that it was open at all. You are not entitled to endless moments of heightened awareness. When revelation comes, it is a gift. When urgency rises, it is grace. And grace invites response. If ignored repeatedly, the intensity of that invitation softened. But this is not a message of doom. It is a call to awareness. You are still within the window. You are still in the moment of activation. The question is not whether others will miss it. The question is whether you will. Will you treat this as another inspirational message, or will you treat it as instruction? Examine your habits today. Where does distraction dominate? What consumes your mental energy without producing growth? What conversations drain clarity instead of sharpening it? What routines keep you reactive instead of strategic? Missing the window rarely happens in a single dramatic decision. It happens in small, repeated compromises of focus. There is also the temptation to wait for perfect conditions. Some believe they will act when circumstances align flawlessly. But perfection is rarely the gateway to breakthrough. Progress often begins in imperfect conditions. If you wait until fear disappears entirely, you may never move. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is action despite it. If this message has stirred you, do not let it fade into memory. Anchor it through action. Engage with it. Declare your commitment publicly. Share this video with someone who needs this urgency. Like it as a statement that you refuse to remain passive. Comment below that you are stepping through the window while it is open. And if you have not yet subscribed, do it now so you remain aligned with future instructions that build on this foundation. Engagement is not just digital activity, it is reinforcement of decision. And before we move forward, hold on to this truth. What is about to be revealed next will expose why this window is more strategic than you realized. The timing is not random. The urgency is not emotional exaggeration. There is alignment occurring behind the scenes that you cannot yet see. You will be grateful you recognized the moment instead of dismissing it. Some will miss this window because they underestimate it. They will assume there will always be another surge of motivation, another moment of clarity, another opportunity to respond. But repeated neglect dulls sensitivity, and sensitivity is crucial in seasons of transition. You are not meant to be among those who look back with regret. You are meant to be among those who say, "I acted when it mattered." Seconds matter because momentum compounds. A single decisive step today can alter months ahead. But inaction compounds as well. A single delay repeated becomes a pattern. The window is open. The awareness is present. The choice is yours. And what you decide in this moment will determine whether you move into acceleration or remain where you have been, watching others step through what you hesitated to enter. Before wealth shifts around you, it must shift within you. That is the revelation Archangel Michael makes unmistakably clear. Many are waiting for external evidence, a raise, a contract, an unexpected opportunity, before they believe change has begun. But true financial transformation does not start in your bank account. It starts in your identity. It starts in how you see yourself. It starts in how you think, decide, and respond long before money increases. If you still see yourself as barely surviving, you will subconsciously sabotage thriving. If you still identify as someone who never catches a break, you will interpret neutral events as setbacks. Identity filters perception. Decisions determine outcomes. So when wealth feels delayed, the most powerful question is not, when will money arrive? It is, who am I becoming while I wait? Archangel Michael reveals that heaven entrusts resources to stewards, not to strugglers in mindset. A struggler focuses on scarcity. A steward focuses on responsibility. A struggler reacts emotionally to every fluctuation. A steward evaluates strategically. A struggler sees money as relief. A steward sees money as assignment. When your identity shifts from desperation to stewardship, your posture changes. This does not mean you deny current challenges. It means you refuse to let them define you. You may be in a tight season, but that does not make you a small person. You may be rebuilding, but that does not make you incapable. Internal dignity must remain intact even when external evidence is limited. When dignity remains, discipline follows more easily. The wealth shift internally begins with ownership. No more blaming circumstances entirely. No more attributing every delay to external forces. Ownership asks, what can I improve? What can I refine? What can I strengthen? This mindset does not deny external challenges. It simply refuses to surrender power to them. Ownership is empowering. It positions you as an active participant in your transformation rather than a passive observer. Another internal shift is long-term vision. If you think only in terms of immediate relief, you will make short-term decisions that undermine long-term growth. Wealth requires patience. It requires planting seeds whose harvest you may not see instantly. It requires saying no to impulses that feel good today but damage tomorrow. When your thinking expands beyond the moment, your discipline strengthens. Archangel Michael emphasizes that internal wealth precedes external wealth. Internal wealth includes wisdom, self-control, resilience, courage, and faith. These qualities attract opportunity. They sustain increase. Without them, sudden abundance can become sudden loss. With them, even small resources multiply steadily. There is also the shift from comparison to concentration. Comparison drains focus. It convinces you that others are ahead and you are behind. It breeds either envy or discouragement. Concentration, however, builds progress. It directs energy toward your assignment. When you stop measuring your journey against someone else's timeline, you reclaim mental clarity. Clarity fuels momentum. Internal wealth also requires emotional regulation. Financial growth brings pressure. Decisions carry weight. Risks involve uncertainty. If emotions dominate every choice, instability follows. Learning to pause before reacting, to analyze before committing, to seek counsel before leaping. These habits strengthen internal structure. Drug use supports expansion. You must also confront your relationship with money itself. Do you fear it? Resent it? Idolize it? Misunderstand it? Money is a tool. It magnifies what is already within you. If you approach it with anxiety, it will feel threatening. If you approach it with wisdom, it becomes strategic. Reframing your relationship with money removes unnecessary emotional charge and replaces it with clarity. Archangel Michael reveals that some are waiting for confidence to arrive before they act boldly. But confidence often follows action, not the other way around. When you take responsible steps, budgeting carefully, investing wisely, learning continuously, confidence builds organically. Small wins accumulate. Competence grows. Identity strengthens. The internal shift also includes how you handle setbacks. A struggler interprets setbacks as confirmation of failure. A steward interprets them as feedback. Feedback refines strategy. Failure paralyzes. When you view challenges as information rather than condemnation, resilience increases. And resilience is essential for sustainable wealth. Do not underestimate the power of quiet internal decisions. The choice to wake earlier. The decision to track expenses honestly. A commitment to learn instead of complain. These are not glamorous actions, but they reshape identity. They declare that you are serious about stewardship. Seconds matter because internal shifts happen in moments of decision. You either reinforce old narratives or adopt new ones. You either indulge discouragement or cultivate discipline. You either blame or build. These decisions may seem small, but they accumulate into transformation. You may not see dramatic change tomorrow, but if your identity shifts today, tomorrow begins to align differently. When you think like a steward, act like a steward, and plan like a steward, wealth recognizes a prepared environment. The wealth shift begins internally because internal alignment attracts external opportunity. You cannot consistently operate at one level internally and expect to sustain another externally. Growth must match capacity. Capacity must match character. The question is no longer whether wealth is delayed. The question is whether you are becoming the person who can handle it when it arrives. Because when identity aligns with assignment, delay no longer feels like punishment. It feels like preparation reaching completion. This is the final warning before release. Not a warning of fear, but a warning of awareness. Archangel Michael reveals that just before breakthrough manifests, there is often one last opportunity to either align completely or revert quietly. Many have come this far. Many have recognized the delay, confronted the open doors, broken agreement with lack, and activated new habits. But right before the shift becomes visible, complacency attempts one final negotiation. Complacency whispers you have done enough. It suggests that partial alignment is sufficient. It tempts you to relax discipline just as consistency begins producing subtle results. This is the critical edge. The moment before acceleration is often disguised as monotony. Nothing dramatic appears to change. The routine feels repetitive. The effort feels unnoticed, and in that space, some retreat. Archangel Michael warns that retreat at the edge of breakthrough prolongs the cycle unnecessarily. It is not dramatic rebellion that delays destiny at this stage. It is subtle compromise. Skipping the budget review. Ignoring the early warning signs of distraction. Delaying the courageous conversation you know is necessary. Tolerating minor leaks in discipline. These actions seem small, but small cracks widen under pressure. Another final warning is emotional exhaustion. After prolonged delay, fatigue can cloud discernment. You may think, what difference will one more day make? But seconds still matter. The accumulation of small, consistent actions is what has brought you to this threshold. To abandon them now would be like stopping inches before the finish line. There is also the temptation of counterfeit opportunities. When genuine breakthrough is near, distractions often appear disguised as shortcuts. Quick money schemes. Partnerships that promise rapid results without alignment. Decisions that look profitable but contradict your refined principles. These are tests of integrity. Not every open door is divine. Some are diversions. Archangel Michael reveals that discernment sharpens at the edge of release. You must evaluate opportunities through the lens of alignment, not urgency. If it compromises your character, it will compromise your future. If it requires you to ignore the lessons you just learned, it is not acceleration, it is regression. Pride also makes one final attempt. After internal growth, you may begin to feel stronger, clearer, more confident. That confidence is good, but pride distorts it. Pride says, you no longer need counsel. Pride resists correction. Pride assumes immunity from past weaknesses. But humility sustains what pride destroys. Remain teachable. Remain accountable. Remain aware that growth is ongoing. This final stage is about consolidation, solidifying the habits you have built, reinforcing the mindset you have adopted, strengthening the boundaries you established. Breakthrough is not sustained by inspiration alone. It is sustained by structure. If structure weakens, even genuine increase can slip through your hands. Archangel Michael emphasizes that release follows readiness, and readiness is proven through stability under pressure. Can you maintain discipline when excitement fades? Can you continue sowing when harvest is not yet visible? Can you resist comparison when others appear to move faster? Stability now ensures security later. There is also a warning regarding speech. Just before breakthrough, doubt may attempt to re-enter through careless words. Statements like, "It probably won't last," or "something will go wrong," reopen doors you previously closed. Guard your language. Words are seeds. If you plant fear, you nurture hesitation. If you plant confidence, rooted in alignment, you strengthen expectation. Understand this clearly. The final warning is not a prediction of failure. It is an invitation to vigilance. You are closer than you think. That is why resistance has shifted from obvious obstacles to subtle temptations. When the enemy cannot block you externally, it attempts to distract you internally. This is the moment to tighten focus, not loosen it. Review your commitments. Reaffirm your decisions. Strengthen your daily disciplines. Remove lingering distractions. Refuse to negotiate with old habits. The release you have been anticipating is not random. It is the result of sustained alignment. Archangel Michael reveals that some listening are within days or weeks of visible shift. But visibility depends on perseverance. Do not misinterpret silence as stagnation. Seeds germinate beneath the surface before they break through soil. Roots strengthen before branches expand. What feels hidden may actually be preparation reaching completion. If you feel pressure intensifying, do not panic. Pressure often precedes promotion. If you feel tested, do not retreat. Testing refines resilience. If you feel tempted to compromise, pause and remember why you began this journey of alignment. This final warning exists because what is coming carries weight. Responsibility will increase. Influence may expand. Resources may multiply. And without vigilance, expansion can overwhelm. But with vigilance, expansion empowers. Seconds still matter, not because you are behind, but because you are at the threshold. The difference between sustained breakthrough and temporary relief lies in these final choices. Stay consistent. Stay humble. Stay disciplined. The release is not a distant dream. It is approaching alignment. And alignment, once fully established, invites acceleration that no delay can permanently prevent. This is the promise of restored wealth. Not imagined wealth. Not borrowed wealth. Not temporary relief. Restored wealth, aligned, sustained, and purposeful. Archangel Michael reveals that what has felt delayed is not denied. What has felt withheld is being repositioned. And what has seemed stagnant is closer to movement than you realize. You have walked through awareness. You have confronted hidden resistance. You have examined obedience. You have closed doors. You have broken agreement with lack. You have activated new habits. You have guarded against distraction. Now understand this. Restoration follows alignment. Restoration is not simply money appearing unexpectedly. It is order returning. It is clarity replacing confusion. It is discipline stabilizing decision. It is courage strengthening action. When internal order is restored, external provision finds a stable place to land. Archangel Michael makes it clear, heaven does not release sustained increase into chaos. But where structure hath been rebuilt, flow becomes safe. Some of you will see opportunities return that you thought were permanently lost. Some will experience new doors that look different from what you expected but carry greater potential. Others will find that what once felt heavy becomes manageable. The same income handled with new wisdom produces different outcomes. Restoration is not always louder, it is wiser. There is also a deeper restoration taking place. The restoration of confidence. The restoration of expectation. The restoration of vision. When delay lasted long, hope may have weakened. You learn to expect less to avoid disappointment. But restored wealth requires restored expectation. You must believe again, not blindly but boldly. Believe that discipline will bear fruit. Believe that seeds will multiply. Believe that alignment attracts acceleration. Archangel Michael reveals that restored wealth carries assignment. It is not merely for comfort. It is for impact. It is for influence. It is for generosity that expands beyond your immediate circle. When your heart is aligned with purpose, increase becomes a tool rather than a trophy. That is why this process mattered so deeply. You were not being prepared just to have more. You were being prepared to handle more responsibly. Restoration also includes peace. Financial pressure often disturbs sleep, strains relationships, and clouds joy. But when stewardship strengthens, anxiety weakens. Even before numbers shift dramatically, peace can return. And peace is a sign that alignment is working beneath the surface. Do not expect restoration to look identical to your original vision. Sometimes what returns is greater but different. Sometimes the path shifts but the promise remains. Archangel Michael emphasizes flexibility with faith. Be open to new strategies. Be willing to pivot where necessary. Alignment is not rigidity. It is responsiveness guided by wisdom. You are not the same person who first cried out in frustration. You are more aware, more disciplined, more intentional, more courageous. That growth is evidence that delay did not destroy you. It refined you. And refinement qualifies you for restoration. As this message closes, receive this assurance. Nothing aligned with purpose is permanently lost. Time may have stretched. Lessons may have been difficult. But what was meant for you remains within reach when alignment is complete. Heaven does not forget assignment. And restoration often arrives when readiness meets opportunity. Stand firm in what you have built internally. Continue the habits you have strengthened. Guard the mindset you have cultivated. Refuse to reopen doors you have closed. Maintain the exchange you have activated. Stay vigilant against complacency. These are not temporary adjustments. They are foundations for sustained increase. And now, let this be sealed with intentional declaration. Type "Restoration is mine" in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 1224 is now activated. As you declare it, do so with conviction. Not arrogance, but assurance. Assurance that obedience was not wasted. Assurance that discipline was not unnoticed. Assurance that alignment has positioned you for flow. Before we close completely, I speak to those who feel called to fuel this restoration message so it reaches even further. When you release a super thanks, join as a member, or so through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are planting into restored ground. Scripture declares that God gives seed to the sower and multiplies what is released in faith, and that promise is alive over you right now. Say within your spirit, I am partnering with restoration. Your giving is not a transaction. It is a prophetic act of agreement with increase. As you sow, may doors open, wisdom expand, and provision pursue you. Do not hesitate. Seal your alignment with action. This is not the end of your story. It is the turning point. Wealth delayed is becoming wealth aligned. Delay is transforming into discipline. Discipline is positioning you for restoration. And restored wealth, anchored in purpose, protected by wisdom, and guided by alignment, will not slip through your hands again.